Okay, we are recording. Excellent. While we're waiting, does anybody recognize this book? I've got my plant technology book, and some of you folks might recognize these older versions of Nancy's Royal BC Museum handbooks. These are some, they've been renewed. There's new titles of those, new copies. Oh, we've got pen, is that? You good, Pam?
I'm good.
Okay. That was just a little woo over to the porch.
I just thought Nancy might like to see your face because I think I'm.
Oh, is that what she was doing?
Yeah, right.
And I'm gonna get you. We want to see your face in a minute too. You can always turn that around. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 1:59. Almost ready to start.
There's a plane flying overhead now.
Oh. We can listen to it if it's not too long, but feel free to mute yourself, Pam. Oh, we've got lots of comments in the chat window. That's great. Yeah, you're going in and out of focus a little bit, Pam. I think it's when you're moving. If you can try to stay still. I know it's hard with the selfie stick. You're my hero with that selfie stick. Again, we'll talk after.
She does it.
It's braced on my leg right now, so it should work okay.
Okay, great. And it's 2 o'clock, so we're going to start. So welcome everybody to RBCM at Outside. My name is Liz Crocker, and I'm a learning program developer on the learning team at the Royal BC Museum. And I'm coming to you today from my home in Saanich, BC. So I'm on the territories of the Saanich and Lekwungen speaking people. So I'm very grateful to be able to work from home because I know a lot of people don't have that privilege. I'm very happy to be able to do that and to talk to you today. So the format for our program today is webinar format. If you're not familiar with it, we can't see or hear you. You can hopefully see and hear me and my guest in a minute here. And but we will be able to interact with you through the chat window, either in Zoom. My colleague Chris is monitoring the chat here, and we also have Wes from the museum monitoring the comments that might come in through Facebook. So we're going to have about 20 minutes with Nancy to do this virtual walk with her. I'm so excited. And then some time for questions. So that's the format. And just to let you know, the next program, we do these outside programs every second Wednesday. So the next one is June 3rd, and I'm gonna have Luann Neal back with me again, the repatriation specialist from the museum. And we're gonna dig a little deeper into the history of Thunderbird Park. So that's gonna be really interesting. And then on the 10th, I've got an extra RBCM at Outside to celebrate Oceans Week. So I'm gonna be at a beach somewhere off the coast of Victoria, I'm not sure where yet, with Dr. Gavin Hankey and Heidi Gartner exploring the ocean. So watch the website for that. Now also, I've given Wes and Chris a link to share with you in the chat because Nancy has so generously prepared a really great little document of our virtual walk today. So we're not going to get to all the things I know she wants to show us, and I'm going to have to be the timekeeper and cut her off. But she's included some beautiful images and some great information, and also a link to one of her latest books is in there. Yeah, we've shared the link, so please have a look at that for if you want more about what we're going to be talking about today. So again, with the format, usually I'm outside with someone, or at least I'm on the ground outside, but I couldn't do that today because Nancy's going to be speaking to us from Protection Island, which is a small little island off the coast of Nanaimo in Nanaimo Harbor. So because of the pandemic, it's not safe for an outsider. I'm a Vancouver Islander, but I'm not a Protection Islander. So not safe for me to go there. So I have entrusted my colleague, Pam Murray, who maybe she's going to flip herself around there. We almost lost you, Pam. There you go. There's Pam. Hello, Pam. And Pam Pam, tell us quickly who you are and what you do.
I'm an interpreter and naturalist, and I am a neighbor of Nancy's on Protection Island, and I have really long arms and a selfie stick.
So they are going to be
nominated.
Social distancing, yes, with a selfie stick, and Pam's arm is very strong to be able to hold out that selfie stick. Thank you, Pam. And yes, so Pam will be our eyes and our ears out there and helping us with some questions as well. Okay, So without further ado, I want to introduce Nancy, who, if you don't know who Nancy Turner is, she's actually a world-renowned, I know she doesn't like to hear that, but a world-renowned ethnobotanist and professor emeritus at the University of Victoria and a prolific author. And the first time I met Nancy, I was writing a history about Freeman Skipper King. And I interviewed Nancy because he was such an influence on her. He was a very influential environmental hero, a mentor to many, many naturalists, to many children and youth on Vancouver Island. And he was a great influence on Nancy. And now here she is, I think a very influential person on many lives and just a positive force for good in the world. So I'm going to hand it over to you on that note, Nancy. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Liz. It's really good to be here with my friend Pam and with all of you today on this beautiful, quite sunny day here on Protection Island. So it's very nice to be a part of this.
Yes.
I think, Liz, I'd like to start off by acknowledging that here on Protection Island, we're within the territory of the Nanaimo First Nation, one of the other Coast Salish peoples related to the people around Victoria, but speaking a slightly different language, the Hokomaitnam language. And I also want to acknowledge that the information that I will share with you was taught to me by many wonderful knowledge holders from various Indigenous communities up and down the coast and in the interior of BC. And many of them have passed away now, but I still hold them dear to my heart. And so it's a real pleasure to show you some of the plants that we have here on Protection Island, and many of them occur throughout the coast, and some of them are just restricted to the Douglas fir zone on southeastern Vancouver Island. We have several, you can probably, oh, there's a deer coming up the road, which Pamela could show you maybe.
Oh yeah. Look at that. The wonders of Protection Island.
Just one of the visitors that we have here. And they're, of course, a very important part of our wildlife, along with the birds. You can hear a robin who's calling in somewhat of an alarming tone. But today I was thrilled as I was walking here to Pam's to hear the very first Swainson thrush of the springtime arrived here on Protection Island. And for those of you who don't know, the Swainson thrush has a strong connection all up and down the coast with salmonberries. And it's sometimes called the salmonberry bird. And in the Sanchatan language, its song is singing to the salmonberry, the different varieties of salmonberries to ripen, the red ones, the dark ones, the orange ones, and to ripen. And that's what its song says. So I was so thrilled to hear that today. I think we'll start off, Pam, with the beautiful wild ginger that you have growing in your pot here. This is a really unusual plant. It grows wild on Vancouver Island, but only in certain places. It's valued by First Nations, the Cowichan and others, for its delightfully fragrant, spicy smell. And people would take some of the leaves and the rhizomes and put them in water, in the bath water, and then bathe in it as a just as a cleansing bath. And it has these heart-shaped leaves and then amazing flowers. 3 sepals, and they're mostly under the ground. But Pam and I were thrilled to see some little seedlings that have sprouted up right beside the pot here. It's obviously going to form a nice little patch one day. And Pamela's lucky to have this plant in her yard. I want to show you some of the trees that are growing around here as well. As you probably are aware, every tree and shrub in this whole area, and many of the herbaceous native plants as well. They all have their own names in the different languages, in the Sanchatan language, in the Hokomatenam language, the Nuchano, Kwakwala, Haida, Heiltsuk, all of the coastal languages, they would have names for these trees that we see around us, wherever they're growing in their territories. We might start with the big leaf maple. This is one of 3 maples that are native to British Columbia, the other 2 being the Rocky Mountain maple and the vine maple. The big leaf maple has the biggest leaves of any deciduous tree in all of Canada. And although it doesn't produce as much sweet sap as the sugar maple in the east, you can make maple syrup from this species of maple as well. But for local First Nations, they would use the leaves for laying food on and as a surface, as a flavoring for meat. And they use the wood for, especially for paddles, for carving canoe paddles. And that's its name in some of the Coast Salish languages, the paddle tree. Also used for carving spindle whorls for spinning mountain goat and dog wool. So it's a very special and beautiful tree right here in Pamela's front yard. Then I want to show you another tree. Let's see if we can, I can't reach it, but maybe you can go up there, Pam, and show them the flat spreading needles of the grand fir. One of the 3 true firs that we have in the genus Abies. And it has blisters on its bark that contain liquid pitch, very strong smelling, fragrant pitch that's quite sticky, but is good, has antibiotic properties, and is used for salve, medicinal salve of various kinds. The branches, the leaves are fragrant, the needles, and you can make tea from them and use them in flavoring as well. Things like sorbet. You can flavor sorbet, make an amazing flavored sorbet from grand fir needles. And then the next one we'll show you, I guess we'll go over here.
Those robins are very insistent.
There's an owl
I was gonna say there must be
nearby.
Yes.
Pamela warned me that if we start hearing the robins calling too loudly, it's probably because the barred owl is nearby and they're scolding it. Yeah. This is one of the most important of all the trees for the First Nations, the Western red cedar. Beautiful.
Yeah, sorry, Nancy, if you just stay still on that leaf, Pam, we'll get a good close look at the needles. There we go.
How's that?
That's pretty good.
Beautiful, scaly needles or leaves, and very nice fragrance. The wood, the inner bark, the branches, the roots, the boughs, all have important cultural uses and properties for them. These long, slender branches are very tough, and people in the old days would twist them up while they're still attached to the tree, twist it up and make rope that they would use for tying house planks onto house posts or any other number of different purposes that you would use ropes for. The wood is, of course, the most important for making dugout canoes, making house posts and house planks. It splits easily and it's rot resistant. And we have a truck going by our road.
We have a truck and my phone just warned me that my battery is. So I may need to, do you have the basket and the thimbleberry or whatever it was to maybe show, and that way I can plug in for a minute?
Cool. Let's do that.
Okay.
That's a good idea. See, all these hazards of doing an live outdoor online program. You have somewhere to plug in there, Pam?
I do.
Bear with us, everybody.
Okay.
Give us time to get rid of that truck.
Yeah.
Okay, try to hold the camera still.
So I'm good from here if Nancy can.
Is this okay here?
Sure. Does that look okay?
If you can get a little bit closer, if it's, as long as you're 2 meters.
I'll come closer. We will keep our distance, but I'll come closer.
As long as you're 2 meters apart.
Yep.
There we go. That's a little better. Yes, thank you, Nancy.
Okay. Well, on the way over here, I picked a couple of thimbleberry leaves because I wanted to show you, especially the young people who might be going out picking wild strawberries in a little while, or some other kind of berries, how to make a little basket from a thimbleberry leaf. I picked these leaves in a place where they're going to be cut by the road anyway. So the thimbleberry is one of the plants related to raspberry, has edible berries and edible shoots, but the leaves are also really valuable because, like the maple leaves, they provide a flat surface for putting food on. But you can also make your own little basket. So you take the stem and you cut it off with your fingernail like that. And then you take the lobes of the leaf, the upper lobes, and fold them onto the top lobe like that. There. Can you see that okay?
Pam, if you can, yep, we need you to hold the camera still for a minute so we can. Okay, if you could turn it to the side a little bit, then we can, oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then we take the stem and you just poke that stem through the folded leaf. And there you have your little basket.
Thimbleberry basket.
Just enough to take about 2 tablespoons or so of little wild strawberries or any other little things that you need to keep safe. If you want to save seeds or something like that, when you're out and about and you don't have a container, you can make one out of a thimbleberry leaf.
Thank you, Nancy. Where did you learn to do that?
Probably Freeman King. A long time ago, when I was a kid.
That's great,
But
thank
I
you.
will also tell you a little story about the sword fern. And I picked one of the old sword fern fronds from Pam's sword ferns in the front, one that was going to be dying off this year. But it has a lot of stories to go with it. The sword fern is a very valuable plant too for laying food on, for making temporary mats. But in the Digidat language on the West Coast, my friend John Thomas taught me about this. It's called pala pala butt, pala pala mut. Pala means one. And when he was a young man, he's passed away now many years ago, but when he was a young man, they used to have a contest for young men to help them learn how to hold their breath for a long time. And the way they did this, they would give the young men each a sword fern frond, and they would have to take the frondlets off one at a time and say pala with each time, with only one breath. So, like this. Pala, 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 and so forth, and go all the way up and all the way back down. And the young men who could do that, they were the winners of this contest. But it wasn't just for fun. It was because those were the young men who were trained when they needed somebody to do diving. They were trained for diving. And one of the things they dove for was the long stems of the bull kelp, which they'd cut off at the base. They'd have to dive way deep down into the kelp beds and cut the bull kelp at the bottom. And that's what they used for fishing line. They had to cure that for a long period of time. And what they used also for that fishing line would be a fishing hook like this. This would be made of yew wood, or sometimes made from the knot of a tree. So tree knots are very dense wood, very hard. And John showed me how they would, in the old days, they'd get a nice long tree knot, they'd split it in several pieces. Then they'd put it inside the hollow stem of the kelp, and they would steam it in the sand under a fire. In the morning, you can take those long pieces out and you can bend them into a hook. And if you use the right kind of wood, the hook will keep its form like that. And this is a hook that would be used for halibut or cod, and it's suspended like that from a string of probably stinging nettle twine. And there would be another one on the other end, two of them together, and the whole thing would be suspended way down in the water with an anchor by a bull kelp stem. So that whole story of the pala pala and the game or the contest that young men played has a real practical reason for it. When John was a young man, they'd already started to change that game into using those old-fashioned pin clothes pegs on a clothesline across the room and say pala 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 as they pulled the clothes pegs off. But it's still the same idea of training these young men to do this important task.
Yeah, and sorry, Nancy, I was just going to say, I've played that with children. I must have learned it from you, but you can play it with children without picking the fronds the way you were doing. Yeah. I know, just if anybody wants to try it at home, you can, if you just put, you touch each one as you go around. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to, you can do pala, 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 like that. That's right. A great idea, Liz.
And then kids love to see how long they can hold their breath for. Thank you for sharing that story. Whereabouts was John Thomas from?
John was born and raised at Claus on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Oh, okay. His mother was Ida Jones. His stepfather was Chief Charlie Jones of the Pacheedaht Nation out at Port Renfrew. Okay. And his family still lives out there. And we worked with his mom. She was the one who taught me how to do pit cooking, also using sword fern fronds and salal. So I learned a great deal from him. He was a dear friend, and so were his mom, especially.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It was so beautiful. And we have a hook like that in the gallery at the museum, in the First Peoples Gallery. Next time people get a chance to go there when we reopen, and I'll never look at it the same way again. Now I've got a bigger story attached to it. Thank you.
And while I'm sharing, how's our time, Liz?
Oh, you are good for about another 4 minutes or so.
Okay. So I just wanted to also show you another thing that I brought along today. This is a basket made out of the bark of Western red cedar by a Haida man, Todd DeVries, who learned how to make baskets from his relatives, his aunties, I believe. And he lives in Vancouver, but he's become a very good weaver. And I'm really proud to have a couple of his baskets that I use all the time when I go to pick berries. I like to pick berries using a proper basket. And the way this one works, it hangs over your neck. See if I can do this without getting tangled up in the, like so. That leaves your hands free. You can pull the branches, the huckleberries, the salal berries, the salmon berries, right over the basket and just pick into it. And there's nothing that I like better than picking berries.
What a great design.
I was given a Tahltan nickname, Chija Egadan, that means berry woman. I'm very proud of that because I love picking berries.
That's great. Can you say it again, slower?
Chija Egadan. It's a Tahltan name.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Look at the design of that basket. That is just so brilliant. It's perfect.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
How is our
Just gorgeous. Sorry, Pam?
Here, I'll tell you another story while we're still charging the.
We can walk again.
We can walk around.
You want to?
Well, I'll just quickly show you one more thing that John Thomas told me. This is called Old Man's Beard. It's a lichen, Usnea, that has also antibiotic properties. And John actually called it Indian Band-Aid back in those days. He used that term and said you can put hot water on it and use it as a poultice. And we've actually done that a few times when our friends have gotten cuts that have got infected. You put a poultice on that. That worked really well in a couple of times when we needed that when we were out in the bush.
Oh, that's neat. I wonder if any of your students ever studied that. That'd be something really neat to follow up on.
It would be.
Yeah.
There's so many different medicines that people use. Even the Western red cedar, you can boil it up and the steam from it is said to help to purify the house or purify the room. And a lot of the elders I worked with remembered their grandparents having a pot of cedar boughs on the back of the stove just for that purpose.
Oh, interesting. And I just see there's a question. Someone's wondering, they're saying, does the lichen need to be hot? But I think they mean the water for the poultice. Does the water need to be hot?
The water should be boiling.
Okay.
And you pour it over top of the lichen and let it steep for a little while. And then you take the lichen and you put it on your cut or wound or whatever. But I have to put a cautionary note in there. The medicines that I'm telling you about, I don't necessarily recommend them. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a trained herbalist. So I'm passing along information that was told to me, but I'm not recommending these medicines. You should always check with somebody who is a real specialist in herbal medicine or a trained physician, and not take the word of someone like me who's just a botanist.
Thanks. That is a good cautionary note. Absolutely. And also, yes, you need to be with someone who knows that you've got the right species as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are many lookalikes for this lichen.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Nancy. I'll just say to folks in the Facebook or the Zoom room, now's a good time to type in any questions you might have. And we can look for those. While Nancy's walking, I think there's something else she wanted to show us. We're at 226 now, Nancy.
Have one more plant?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that connection's pretty good, Pam.
Yeah.
And there's the cautionary mushroom. Okay, we're going to show you one of the poisonous mushrooms that is out now. It's quite common here on Protection Island. It looks like the fly agaric mushroom, which is bright red or orange with white spots, but this one is buff with white spots. And it's called panther agaric, and it is quite poisonous. It's poisonous to humans and it's poisonous to dogs. So just if you see it around, leave it alone. It has white gills and a cup, a ring around the stem and a cup underneath.
Okay.
So it's always good to know if you want to know what's good to eat, you also need to know what's not good to eat. And that's one of the things that's not good to eat. There's a beautiful cedar trunk here showing the bark of the Western red cedar. People would harvest strips of bark from these trees, maybe a little smaller than that one, but they just take one strip or maybe two at the most, but not nearly the circumference of the tree. So the tree will continue to live. And I've seen Western red cedar trees up and down the coast that have had strips of bark pulled from them, and they've grown over maybe one every century for 400 or 500 years, and the trees are still continue to live. So that's one way that people both respected the tree and were able to use it, because plants have an amazing regenerative capacity. And the cedar bark is just one example. You think of harvesting asparagus, and you can cut a couple of the shoots from the asparagus plant and it will grow up again. And the same with a lot of the plants that people use. You can cut back pieces for using for arrows or whatever, for eating the shoots like the thimbleberry, and the plant will continue to grow. So that's something, the way that people looked after the plants and kept them going, that was really important. So one more plant I want to show you. It's a nice patch here that Pamela has of a sedge. This one is called cheetah in the Nuu-chah-nulth language, and it's called basket sedge. It has
I think you mentioned that one in your in the document that you sent. That
I did, and I showed you a picture of a basket.
Right.
The Nuu-chah-nulth puku basket made out of these.
Okay.
They would only take the plants that didn't have the flowers. So these would be called the male, and the vegetative ones are called the female. So they got the leaves of the female, and that's what they, and I'm just going to show you quickly how they used to prepare them. So you take a leaf like this, from the female plant, that is the non-flowering plant. You use your thumbnail and you just go, well, this one broke off, but you just go like that. And that's how the sedge is prepared. Then they tie them in bundles and hang them up to dry. And then some of them they would dye different colors. And then they would use them to make these beautiful little wrapped twined baskets. There are many of examples in the Royal BC Museum, so you can have a look at them. And now you know one of the things that they're made from. And
the name of that sedge again?
It's called cheetah in the Didida in Nuu-chah-nulth.
Okay, we've got that on the learning portal. That's great. I know, and someone else, thank you, Nancy. Someone was asking again the name of the first plant you showed. I think that was the ginger, wasn't it?
Oh, the wild ginger, yes.
Yeah.
Asarum caudatum is the scientific name.
Asarum caudatum.
Yeah.
And that is in the in what you sent as well, I think.
Yes, I think it is.
Yep. So all the names, and there's lots of great photos in there, so you can follow up on the learning portal there. Okay, do we have any, let's see if we've got any other questions. I know somebody had asked about quail.
Quail.
Yeah, we've got somebody age 8 who's interested. I don't know if you know about quail. Are they native wild quail on Protection Island? I don't know if you.
I don't know whether they were here like 200 years ago, but they've been here for a long time. The quail are certainly part of our wildlife group here, and we always enjoy hearing them. And we have right now these little fluff ball chicks running around after their mom and dad, aunties and uncles, sometimes big groups of them together. And yeah, we really enjoy them here on the island.
Very cute. I hear there's a question from Hannah, who says, my ethnobotany class last year didn't talk much about mushrooms. Were they widely utilized for food and other reasons?
Oh, thanks, Hannah. I think I know which Hannah that is. On the coast here, people didn't eat mushrooms in traditional days, in the old days, as far as I understand from talking with elders. They used them sometimes in various ways. Tree fungus was used for medicine and for spiritual protection. But in the interior, the Nkatmuch, Chkwatmuch, Sklatlimuch, Silich, the Okanagan, they ate mushrooms, a number of different kinds of mushrooms, including the pine mushroom, the Tricholoma magnivaleri that people pick commercially. but they ate those. They ate one called the cottonwood mushroom, Tricoloma populinum, that grows under cottonwood trees.
Yeah.
I went out with Hilda Austin many years ago on Thanksgiving Day up the Nicola Valley, and she showed us the cottonwood mushroom. People also eat chanterelles, which my friend Annie York called little fish gills in Katmuk, the morel mushroom, and sometimes puffballs, although generally puffballs were used medicinally, the spores, but not eaten. So there were a few that were eaten, but on the coast, most people, as far as I understand, didn't eat mushrooms traditionally.
Thanks for that. Well, I actually have a question. We're pretty close to we're at 2:34 here, so we're going to have to close off soon. But I'm just going to say that I find that you are one of the most positive people I've ever met in my life. And I know that you have worked outside so much. You've been outside so much and spent so much time in nature. And I know you're well aware of the challenges that, is facing Mother Earth and climate crisis and loss of biodiversity and things like that worry all of us. And
yeah,
how do you, I know you're a hopeful, positive person. Can you share with us how you remain so hopeful?
I guess, yeah, I worry about those things as well, of course. And my husband, Bob, can tell you, I sometimes rant about invasive species or
oh no,
when somebody
in
chops
this yard,
down.
Nancy? Don't look.
But to me, the thing that I'm always impressed with is how amazingly regenerative nature is. How plants, they have what they call a meristem bank. That is banks of cells under their bark, in the tips of their shoots, in their roots, ways of regenerating themselves, and they can just keep going for generation after generation, renewing themselves and creating this amazing environment and habitat for all of us, including that robin. And that is, to me, so inspiring. I just love these green plants, and I think the more we can encourage green plants to grow, the less we can pave things over with parking lots and roads and big buildings, and the more we can grow green plants on rooftops and any other place. Maybe get rid of some of the lawns and plant a more diverse vegetation everywhere. I think that I can't help but feel really positive about the future when I see how amazingly resilient nature is.
There's lots of reasons
I'm gonna
for
swing
hope
the camera around so Nancy can actually see you, Liz.
Well, and she can't see the audience out there, but I can certainly wave to Nancy. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us, Nancy. If you two can just hang on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say goodbye to everybody out there in Facebook. We're going to stop the live stream. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being with you, even if I can't see all of you.
Thanks, Nancy. Oops. Hang on.
Swing back around just because this is
There we
hard.
go.
I figure it's weird not to see her like a little.
All right.